Mother Jean's going to be rector of Good Sam. Please, let's give her a big round of applause because she's stepping into this.
Let's start with a question first. I do have his basic outline of what he was going to do here today, and he's not well, and he did forget because he is sick. So he's deeply apologetic about not being here.
Could you tell us a little bit about his background through Isaac?
Sure, happy to do that. Isaac Reyla started working at All Saints Pasadena in 2011. All Saints Pasadena is a very large church, one of the larger Episcopal churches with about 4,000 members, and more diverse than many churches, racially diverse, diverse in class, diverse in gender expression, but still not diverse compared to the world itself. And so one of the things I was brought on board to do was to get the membership of the church to mirror the demographics of Pasadena, which is 34% Latino, and that church is not 34% Latino. Isaac was born to Latino Pentecostal pastors and grew up in a very Pentecostal environment and went to Azusa Pacific's University, which, as you know, has a kind of a Pentecostal spirituality and theology to it. And in that time found himself trending away from that and doing a lot of soul searching about multiculturalism, what it means to be Latino, what it means to be a young Latino man, and also making the significant cultural shift from an evangelical Pentecostal life to the Episcopal Church. That is a huge cultural shift. He started off and is still an associate youth minister, and then about 2 years ago took on a new role of being the multiculturalism coordinator. All Saints has a vestry resolution about working towards racial reconciliation and also towards honoring multiculturalism. And that is something that takes a great deal of work on everybody's part, hard work, in order to recognize and honor differences and make cultural shifts in everything we do, including the way we worship, in order to be open to others. Is that a good? Yeah. So he does a lot of that work. To give an example, in youth group, they did a whole year-long curriculum in multiculturalism in which they would explore the various isms and how they had effects, the effects that it had on people. You've probably done the exercise where you say, everybody who didn't have to take out any loans for college, go into the middle. Or everybody who's ever lived on public assistance, stand in the middle. Or everybody who grew up with only one parent, stand in the middle. And what it does is you start to recognize all the forces that bear upon our lives and create our understanding of the world and how we want to do things, such as worship. So, the first question he wanted me to throw out to you is, what are the demographics of your churches? The church that you attend, what are the demographics of your church?
White.
White, except for the 745. 745 is Asian.
Predominantly white, period.
Predominantly white.
Retirement.
Retirement, elderly, older. Okay, white people in retirement.
Asian.
Primarily white, diverse age groups.
Okay. Yeah.
We
Sure.
have, Al Cajon is quite a community with Iraqis. So we have some Christian Iraqis that go to St. Albans. We also have some Karen people from Miramar, the country that also go to St. Albans. So I can't say it's really diverse because we don't really have Latinos. And we only have like a couple token black people. But we're working on it.
Okay. Any others? Yeah.
Our St. Paul's in Yuma, we're really, I call this ancient, because we have probably less than 10 families under 30, and most of our congregation is aging into end of life. But we live in a very, Yuma County itself is like 60% Latino, so.
Okay.
It's a big disconnect.
Yeah, there's a huge disconnect, yeah.
Holy Cross Carlsbad, we have about 80 members. We have 7 gay couples who live in our, who have joined our church. We have very few blacks. We have a couple Latinos. We are all white. When I first started there, the average age was about my age, which is considerably old. And now it's dropped considerably in the last few years because we've got a lot of young families.
Yeah, yeah, we've seen that at Good Sam, all of a sudden young families joining and having babies. Yeah.
St. Paul's Cathedral, we have a lot of gay men and women, and we are predominantly white, aging. Just in the last few weeks, we've had about 4 funerals. And other than that, it's a wonderful place to be. But
And how about the demographics of the leadership of your church?
I'm from St. Louis, we're about 70% African refugee and about 30% Anglo.
And your leaders?
And our bishop's warden is Sudanese, and I'm the junior warden. And our priests are a young couple.
Young white couple. A young white couple, yeah.
I forgot to say that we have a mass at 1 o'clock for Spanish-speaking people. And we're starting to do more morning prayer in Spanish, and it's streaming for people who can't get there.
Luckily, our leadership at St. Paul's, both the senior and the junior are under 40, but the rest of the vestry is 55 plus. So.
55 is young. It's very young.
Children, as I remember.
Okay, so the next question is why? Why is our church demographic the way it is? I did hear primarily Asian congregation, and interestingly at our church, almost all the Asian members, with the exception of one family, attend our 7:45 service, short said service, no music. People of all other races go to the 9:30 with choir.
Well, I didn't say I'm from St. Philip in Lemon Grove, and it's predominantly Hispanic.
Predominantly Hispanic Latino
And then
congregation.
vestry
Okay,
is
wonderful.
also
Okay.
I have to ask, is that younger or older or?
They're all, it's a very big age range. Yeah.
Mix of ages, yeah, yeah. Okay, so the next question, why do you think that is? I heard a lot of you say we're predominantly white. We have some variety. I appreciate your bringing up, somebody brought up Carlsbad, Bob brought up, also a difference in sexual identity, right? So there are all kinds of diversity. There's gender, sexual expression, wealth versus poverty, race, culture. Why? What do you think's going on?
Well, part of it is location. I mean, you're located.
San Diego is a really Latino Asian city. we're in San Diego. I know some of you are not in San Diego, but
I think historically Anglicans are English who are white. And I think it's that, when I was younger, the Episcopal churches were where the elite went, literally.
so there's a perception of elitism.
Yeah, but that's changed, I think, and is changing, which is great.
Yeah.
Well, historically, the church could have been more multicultural, except for
That's true.
what happened back in
That's true.
the way past.
Yeah,
In the United
1800s.
States.
Yeah. I just want to make sure everyone knows that historical moment that there were African American members of Methodist and Episcopal churches, and they were told that they had to sit in the gallery or sit in separate places, and they refused, and they started the African Methodist Episcopal Church, which also is a thriving church and is predominantly black church. So, yeah.
Yeah, just to echo what Bob was saying, historical passivity. In other words, just didn't think about it, didn't take any action to be diverse, or just took the easy road.
Right. Okay. So that makes sense.
I think it's comfortable.
you know, we're just complacent. You know, okay, this is who goes here, we're happy, we're fine.
We being members of Episcopal churches, we say
Yes.
we.
Yeah, same club.
Yeah, same, yeah, you know, rather than making that concerted effort to really reach out and maybe.
I have to say at St. Luke's, we've experienced white flight. We actually recruited a black priest and we lost members who were white. Not many, but there were a few who left. And I think over the time, we kind of shifted some of the service where we have more drums at the music service. And some people are like, oh, I don't really like drums. And so they found other churches to go to. I mean, you have to, if you're gonna be multicultural, you have to be willing to accept other cultures. And so it's kind of a catch-22. You can't be comfortable all the time in your service with organ music. You may have drums, you may have other things, and for St. Luke's, that's been an ongoing struggle to accommodate everyone.
Okay.
So it's been interesting.
Any other thoughts about why we are where we are?
Well, just to add on to that, I think it's that idea that we can't lose our Episcopal roots keeps us in the place of not being willing to experiment in ways that are more welcoming.
Yeah. To others, yeah. Yeah.
I was just gonna add, I think that, at least my perception is that, over the last, I don't know how many years, 20 years, a couple decades, the image of the Episcopal Church has become more progressive. And as we are broadcasting our notion of being inclusive and that all are welcome, no exceptions, I think that message is percolating out and people might be willing to try us out because of that notion of us being inclusive.
Yeah. I wanted to challenge one notion. So I'm a former Roman Catholic, and all the churches that I went to growing up were very racially diverse. A lot of Vietnamese, a lot of Latinos, Germans and Italians, and I come from a large Italian family. Filipino, I was used to having like 5 different languages sung on Christmas Eve. And when I joined the Episcopal Church, I was shocked at its whiteness, just absolutely shocked. And we know that a lot of Episcopalians, or in the Diocese of LA, at one time in the 90s, half of Episcopalians were former Roman Catholics. So where are all the Latino Roman Catholics who are also called to a progressive, and because a lot of Latinos are called to a progressive church, right? Why isn't that? Why is it working in the Catholic Church and not in the Episcopal Church? Because it is.
That's a good question. That's guilt.
Guilt. You mean people are remaining Catholic, or I mean, we're not trying to recruit people away from being Roman Catholic, but we know that there is this road from Rome to Canterbury that I've traveled, right? Right.
Could it be our formality?
Catholic Church is formal.
Pardon?
The Catholic Church is
No, but
Could you say that louder, please?
a formality, you know, the as opposed to in their liturgy, as opposed to the more charismatic churches, which are attracting Latinos, and we are not.
Yeah. It could be.
A little looser in the Episcopal Church as far as doctrine and adhering to it. Not that we're loose, but the Catholics are basically, they have to answer to more rules and regulations.
Right.
We basically have a liturgy that they like, but we also have a little looser in our interpretation.
We have a lot of gray area. We embrace that. That's very true.
My son-in-law used to be Catholic, and he does not like the Episcopal Church because it's too much like the Catholic Church. He wants to get totally away from it.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
Well, when I was growing up, and I belonged to, say, classes or, let's see, how should I put it? Well, anyway, we were told you are not to go to other churches, you are not to go to any parties that pertain to that. So that is one of the reasons, because you are raised that way.
Okay.
And one of the things that you feel, for me, the Episcopal Church is like the Catholic Church.
and you have to do your baptismal, your communion, your confirmation, and you're supposed to take classes before you get married, I don't know, period of 2 years and stuff, that they are brought up to believe, and that is why they stay for the Catholic.
Well,
Not
okay,
unless they're hungry
right,
for literature.
for liturgy, yeah.
Well, I kind of do agree with the cultural type of thing of Catholic church culture versus Episcopal church culture. My wife is a Roman Catholic, and you know, I never heard of things like holy days of obligation, where you are obliged to go to church, and then also similarly, you're not supposed to go to another church. And she was actually, after going to an Episcopal church for 10 years or so, my wife was shocked when she found out the Episcopalians are considered a Protestant church.
Yeah.
And she was like, see, you know, all the drilling in her head was, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
right, yeah, okay. What do you think it's gonna take for us to make the cultural shifts necessary to be truly inclusive? I mean, is there anybody who thinks that it's just a matter of preference that our church has remained so white? Preference on other people's, on the choice of people of color? Or do you think there are barriers?
I think that
Just to make sure.
Well, can you say a little bit more? What might some potential barriers be?
I think it has to do with everything we've been talking about, but mainly because we've been out of focus all this time. The church has been out of focus.
Did you say out of
All this
focus?
time. Yes, yes, we're not focusing.
On what?
We haven't been focusing on what the Holy Scriptures actually teaches all to do.
I see.
I think it's basically it. Otherwise, the barriers wouldn't be, you know, we wouldn't have been here discussing barriers. We would have been here sharing the Holy Spirit outpouring in each and every one and the diversity of God. I minister a multicultural community. It's an irony that even though I'm a Hispanic, the Hispanic community, it's a smaller one there. However, for me, that church is like an anticipation of the banquet we have been, you know, given and presented by Christ. So it's a challenge, but it's the most beautiful gift that God has ever given to us. In our diversity.
Are your Asian members English speaking or
English speaking? But they do, you know, they have their own dialects. When you were mentioning the Filipino part, you know, however, for me has been a challenge to try to abide or dwell in 5 different tribes.
Right.
But I feel the queen.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Denise?
What other,
I think a large part of it is, it was mentioned earlier about the being comfortable. I'll call it the clubism. I have, not unique, but been associated with several different Episcopal churches in my life, and they've all claimed to be inclusive and welcoming if you belong to this club, if you live in this zip code, if your children go to this school. Otherwise, not so much. And I have said it before, I'll say it again, that St. Paul's, in my feeling, is the first church that I have ever been that really walks the talk. And yet, I can count on one hand the number of black members that we have.
Right.
You know, we do have a very large gay population, LGBTQ population, probably half. All white. You know, we do have the Latino ministry that Carlos is our new leader of. Thank you very much. And yet it still exists kind of as I think of it unfortunately as another congregation that's simply using our space. And there's not much integration between.
Right.
We're working on correcting that or trying to integrate more.
Right.
But still, it's the clubism. You know, if you belong to this club, then you're welcome. If you don't, so sorry.
Right.
But Marshall, would you agree or not agree that we have signs all over the campus, welcome everyone,
Absolutely.
refugees, whatever.
Absolutely.
it's not a club.
Well, no,
I wouldn't
not
say
not
it
for
was-
St. Paul's, but for the larger Episcopal Church, there's more of a clubism aspect.
Oh, for other Episcopal
Yeah,
churches.
for the larger in
Okay.
general.
I wasn't.
No,
Whereas
sorry.
with other churches, it's very much the neighborhood you live in that defines your parish or your
Yeah.
community. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
I think, so I lost my thought, go on to another.
Okay. There was another hand over here. Somebody was raising a hand over here.
I was gonna say, one of our challenges as an aging congregation is that we lack people to go out into the community to bring people in. We find that very difficult. A lot of our members can't get around, they don't drive after dark. So when we try to be visible to the different various minorities and whatnot, it's a handful of people who are kind of burnt out because they're doing all the work.
Right, right. One of the, sorry, go ahead.
I'm from St. Margaret's in the desert, and there's kind of this look of, or, people kind of look upon it as the elitist church in the desert, that type of thing, from what it was in the past. But it's mostly retired. We're very fortunate. We have an abundance of riches. We have like over 40 retired clergy in the congregation.
That can be it.
Why can you not pick someone that speaks Spanish? I'm on the vestry now, and we are working on communication, inward and outward, because my dream is having Hispanic ministry.
Right.
Finding somebody, they're there, they come, we have Neighbors for Neighbors, which is, we feed over 1,000 people a week, and they are mostly minority groups. There's our mission field, actually.
Right.
How do we get there?
Okay, how do we get there?
Yeah.
How have you successfully done it?
Well, haven't successfully done it, but one of, church is a cultural experience, I mean, we all know that. And since the Anglican overlay is there, that is a cultural experience. And part of it is how do you integrate different cultural experiences into the Anglican liturgy, and I don't know the answer.
Right. Is that a response to what she's saying?
No, in
Oh.
response to your question.
Okay, so hold on to that, and then let's hear yours, and then I want to get back to that.
Our mantra at our church is open minds, open arms, and it is totally practiced. Our leadership, Reverend Laura, is just doing this all the time. So we have Republicans, we have Democrats, we have old, we have young, we have, it's a huge place. But when they come in the church, they know they are welcome. We have a little saying that if you come 3 times, you're ours.
Is it said, in how many languages is it said in?
This is
said only in English?
We have actually just English, yeah.
Yeah, so that's one thing. How many people have Spanish language on their website? Invitation.
That's a good.
Yeah, well,
I don't know, wait.
not yet, we need a new website. Pero puedo escribir mucho en español.
Good question.
Oh, you take your page and then if you want me to. So, welcome messages in Spanish. And other languages too, if you have Koreans or Chinese, there are a lot of Asians in the UTC neighborhood. But to give an example of the way that you do simple things, we, Richard and I, my assistant Richard and I, put out a sign last Ash Wednesday. We had a thing, it was going to be Ashes to Go, we were going to go to the mall and do Ashes to Go. But we opened the chapel in the morning at 7:30, and I just put out this, like a sandwich board on Eastgate Mall in Genesee, right by our church. And it said Ashes in English. Almost everybody who came was Spanish speaking. And we lucked out because I do speak Spanish. So I just ran and got we had short BCP prayers. I just ran to the Spanish BCP and got it, and then I chatted with them and so on. And waited to see whether they would come back to church. They were coming from the apartment houses across the street from us, and they saw it. Now I guarantee you, if you speak to a lot of my church members, most of them are sitting here, a lot of them will say, I've heard them say this, we don't have very many Spanish speakers in our neighborhood. Within a mile, it's a ton of Spanish-speaking people. and all sorts of Asian languages, and I'm not gonna say an Asian language, because I'm having a hard enough time with Spanish. But you see, there's one possibility is a linguistic invitation. Can your rector say blessings in Spanish? Can your rector priest? Can your priest welcome people and say bienvenidos a nuestra iglesia? Can your priest say that? Just enough to say, I care enough to have learned a little bit. We had at All Saints, where Isaac and I came from, a 1 p.m. Spanish service that he and I worked. And they have a different band. They don't have the big choir with the fancy robes. They had amazing music that comes from Mexico, Cuba, El Salvador. I mean, Puerto Rico, they deliberately got music from a variety of Spanish-speaking countries because the worshipers were from many different countries. And the music in Cuba is very different from the music in Mexico. So they did it by providing the music that people had.
Can I say that we do have services in English, but we also have open to everybody Spanish classes. So learning Spanish.
To learn Spanish, oh, that's great.
I'll tell you, one thing that happens in our community, which is mostly retirement, is that the Spaniards or the Hispanic people that you come in contact are their gardeners. And they are hard workers, but and they don't even know how to speak to them in Spanish.
Right, so there are class divisions as well, right? And there also may be divisions of legal status that keep people living a shadow life, hiding sometimes, right? No, church is sometimes a dangerous place to be if you're not documented right now.
Dan is fluent in Spanish, and that is one of the reasons she does morning prayer in Spanish twice a week. And it is always welcoming to our motto, if you would, is you are welcome here, whatever your faith, whatever your belief, whatever. How does it go? Marshall?
Put me on the spot.
Wherever you are, wherever you are,
yes, you're welcome here.
The All Saints motto, actually. Brought to St. Paul's. What other cultural changes are necessary?
I just wanted to share an experience. I'm from St. Andrews in Pacific Beach. And so we had, for many years, it was a one Sunday service church. Okay? And I'm reflecting based on what you were saying and some of the others here about what a difference made to me. One of the first things to kind of shake up the way things are in the culture was to have a first Sunday of the month as an all ages service with a different liturgy, with the youth participating in the liturgy, very much part of it, and it was a completely redesigned service, different than any other Sunday. And it took, and people got comfortable with that one difference. And the second, when we started a Hispanic ministry and a bilingual service at about 1 in the afternoon, we still have, periodically we have all community services where we encourage, at this point it's still inviting the smaller, maybe 10-person congregation at the 1 p.m. service to join in with the whole community, youth, all services come together and have one service in the morning. And for me, that was a big thing, is I'd see the new faces that I didn't see from the other times and the other services, have a different kind of music and another different kind of liturgy, partly in Spanish and partly in English. So that was what we've been doing that I feel is a step in the direction towards changing the culture of our church and creating a sense of community. But I do think it requires discipline and effort, because I don't think these things skate on their own. I think people would tend to go back to their comfort zones if we didn't actually kind of pull together.
Right. Yeah.
I was going to say that there is a resolution on the agenda for tomorrow's business session here that would, if passed, name the Episcopal Church in San Diego as a sanctuary church. And however that might work out in practice, if it passes, I think it at least declares an important message.
Yes.
And I think that's something for us to think about.
When you think about cultural differences and cultural shifts, it's one of the things that they teach in vision training which is coming to the Diocese of San Diego, is that we have lots of cultural differences between groups, and they're things to be celebrated. To a certain extent, you want to maintain them. You want to maintain the uniqueness of your identity.
Yeah.
But when you are in a majority group that is trying to work to be open to and inclusive to a group that has not found itself attracted to or included in your group, you have to do more to sort of cross the boundary or the barrier, right? So that's the work of multicultural ministry. I had an experience in Indianapolis recently where we went and did an action at a church where we had a group of youth who were trying to get rid of violence in their community, and they invited the police chief in there, and there were about 300 clergy and about 100 lay people in the room. And we were in a missionary Baptist church. First time I've been in a missionary Baptist church. And we sit down, and some guy was playing a Hammond organ, you know, in the background, and one of the members of the clergy just all of a sudden started going, Lord, 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 and singing, and then everybody stands up, and we're all singing because we know what to sing, because we're just repeating what she's saying. And then it kind of, and none of this was scripted, right? So I'm the Episcopal going, where's the liturgy? Was that the planned part? And then another guy just says, glory, glory, glory. And then he starts the same thing, bursting into song. And we all kind of listen to what he's saying, and then we all join in. And then I see this young man who I know is from a Pentecostal church in San Francisco. And he just turns around, looks at me, gets a grin on his face, and then he just stands up and says, you know, Jesus is good. And then there's a song about Jesus is good, where the only line is Jesus is good. This went on for about 20 minutes. And you could tell who the Episcopalians were on. We're also going, is this the official start of the service? Or is this just having fun before the service? Can you see how that's a very white way of thinking?
Yeah.
A very Episcopal
Yeah.
way of thinking. It just is, right? And Isaac would be the first to say that we don't want to make assumptions about what it means to be more Latino, or be more Asian, or be more white, or be more black, or be more Filipino. We don't really want to put people in such narrow boxes. But we do know that we can ask people culturally how they are different. We can note how people are culturally different. And we can make significant changes as a result. And I think his point is that it is going to cause discomfort. Right? Yeah.
We have a different kind of cultural mix in our congregation because we share space with a Jewish congregation. And on Christmas Eve, it was also the first day of Hanukkah, and we had a joint service. And it was jam-packed. And we do a lot of things together. Mission especially, we get together. We are cooperating in the Carlsbad Fair. We cooperate in the Gay at the Beach, Pride at the Beach in Oceanside. We do a lot of things together.
Right.
Which is, but it's opening our eyes. I still want the rabbi to come and read the Torah in our church.
So that they need it, they want it, they will ask and seek for it. So it would be good for the priest to say, we believe that we have the sacrament of confession, like it's optional. But for those who are willing or want or need to share it, we will be, and then you be ready for have a day, at least a month, to let them know that you will be there for them. They need it. They will always ask for that. I have encountered that. I mean, with people that, oh, you're an Anglican, you're an Episcopalian, oh, but you don't do confession, do you? And then it's no, yes we do. We have it.
Thing where you can't feed the people in the park because hepatitis A, and St. Albans has been doing that for many years. We do it as a picnic.
Yeah.
And it's not a hot meal. We just take sandwiches and we eat with them. They're a part of the family, and we also do mass in the park.
Yeah.
My Father Dave, when he came to St. Albans, he brought Welcome Church.
The Welcome Church, yeah.
So, and that's really, you know, he goes every Saturday before the church and talks to the people in the park. We have a program that they're setting up now for laundry. With people, 3 people can go into this one laundry, 1 hour a month or a week, and do the laundry free. They're talking about trying to get showers to come out to El Cajon. So there is a big need in El Cajon because the city fathers have been ignoring it.
Yeah.
So the churches are getting together and working on it. And St. Paul's Pace is coming to El Cajon. We had a meeting at St. Albans not too long ago. And that's gonna be really good for the 3 people that are seniors that give them help. It's
Yeah.
also a big problem.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on that question? Other ways that you could see us bridging the gap with class, with race, gender, age?
I think, we have things going between our 2 services, and a lot of times we invite speakers. And certainly inviting, some of the, clergy at those churches to come and talk to us, educate us. What do you want? You know, where are you in the community? Where should we be in the community?
Right, bringing a variety of voices into the conversations.
St. Albans is right across the circle from the First Presbyterian Church. We do Vacation Bible School together. The Easter egg comes together.
Is that a diverse church whose demographics are significantly different from your own?
They're pretty much white. It's like,
Okay, well.
but I mean, the kids work together and they
Got
learn
it,
about each
yeah.
other's culture. And
Yeah.
we've actually had the pastors come in a couple of times on quiet days and
Yeah.
lead classes from their perspective, which is really wonderful.
That's wonderful.
One thing in St. Luke's we've done since our new minister's come, we've had a number of meals where we've invited everyone from our community that uses our church. We have about, I don't know, 15 AA groups. We have Uptown now has a place in our facility, and we also host Genesis Church. We host them, they pay us to worship there. And so we do have dinners where everyone is invited to come to a potluck dinner. And that's been very,
Yeah.
I was gonna suggest maybe a joint day of volunteerism, maybe the 2 churches support a mission or something like that. You come
Right.
together and you collaborate and have a, you know, Thanksgiving supper or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I did want to get back to our president's, the President's Standing Committee's comment about something like the sanctuary resolution. When you make large public statements like that, you are revealing an openness to other people's experience. An experience that is different from the majority of people who attend Episcopal churches in the Diocese of San Diego. So there are ways to open doors to saying, I'm open to hearing your experience, I'm opening to help you, knowing that your cultural experience is different from mine, or the majority experience.
Related to that, one of the things we're trying very hard to do is to say, help us change. You give us some ideas. In other words, we want to incorporate you and your ideas into ours.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing to ask. I think also a lot of my friends who are people of color say, don't put the burden upon us if you're getting woke. You know, so it's a sensitive, that's a sensitive question, but I think it's a legitimate question. And I think it's also legitimate for people to say, get some training. I do recommend Visions Inc. training. It is all about multiculturalism. It is all about people bridging these differences and divides, cultural ones.
Is that a program? What's the name?
Visions Inc. Just go to visions-inc.org. And Isaac and I have had a lot of training in that area because we do it at All Saints all the time. So he's becoming a trainer in that, and that's a lot of work.
Can I just speak a little bit about that? The diocese is going to engage in visions training starting in January 2018. And it will, over the next 18 months, we hope end up in every congregation in one form or another. But we're starting out with 2-day training of your executive council, standing committee, and diocesan staff at the end of January. That will be followed in March and in June by a train the trainer session
where you can come, or if you know people that you think would be interested in becoming a visions trainer, who become trained, and then those trainers can turn around and work with your congregations on developing your own programs around multiculturalism. So we see this rolling out beginning in January, and hopefully over the next 18 months, all of the congregations in the diocese will have been not only exposed to it, but begun to think of that in their own context and what it might mean for their communities.
What is the name of it?
Vision.
Vision.
Oh, yeah, I do. You can read all about it at this website.
Visions-inc.org.
Janine, could you also write the one for divisions?
That is Visions.
Is that the,
That's the website for
that's the one.
the multicultural training.
I thought you said D.
Visions. Visions. Yeah, visions-inc.org.
Good thing to write this.
Also include the.
Yes. Disability.
A lot of times, the forgotten culture.
Yeah.
It's definitely culture.
Yes, it is definitely there. It's in the training. You can explore any of the isms. When do we stop?
10 minutes.
We have 10 minutes, thank you. One of the most, I referred to an exercise that Isaac was going to describe to you. Remember I said that they engaged in a year of multicultural training with the youth group, which is middle school and high schoolers. And they did this exercise in which they reversed the gender advantages of being a boy versus a girl. And they basically said, you know, if you're a girl, you get to take 2 steps forward for whatever, and if you're a boy, you get to take 1 step forward. And every once in a while, if you were a boy and such a statement were true about you, you had to take a step back. And the boys were furious because the girls, that you were supposed to cross the room, who got across the room first. And when you reversed the gender advantages that are built into sports and the school system, and I didn't get to be an altar girl, you know, when I was a kid. There are things that boys can do that girls can't do, and you reverse it. Girls won the race. And guess what happened to the boys? They were enraged.
I was just gonna say.
They were enraged. They said, it's not fair! Because they totally reversed the gender equation. Did the same thing around color. You've seen it, you can find it on Facebook. The same thing. How many of you take 3 steps forward? And if you reverse and you make it advantageous to be of any other race than white, you get far ahead. And then the white people are saying, it's not fair. So a lot of the visions work is about understanding when you are in the powerful group and when you are in the targeted group. And everybody, we all have ways in which we're in the power groups and ways in which we're in the target groups. If you're well educated, you are in a powerful group. If you've been discriminated against in employment or attendance at a university or being an altar girl or whatever, you have been in some ways disadvantaged or oppressed. And so a lot of the multicultural work is understanding yourself first in a 4-day or 2-day training, understanding your story, because then you understand what you know and don't know about other people's stories. Does that make sense? Yeah. And it also makes you very sensitive to what it is like to be on the powerful side of an issue and on the weak side of an issue. Okay, we have a few more minutes. Is there something you wanted out of this session from Isaac?
You will channel.
Besides a very compelling presenter who would have been much better, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry to do this, but one of the things that we're considering very soon in diversity is that Rabbi Cantor and Reverend Laura are thinking about starting a group for those who have been hurt by their society, their church, their friends, and their families.
Wow. That's very powerful. Very powerful. The other thing that you can do, and this has been a part of multicultural training, is that often, probably when you do your group thing, the trainers will create affinity groups based on different things. Sometimes it's race, sometimes it's gender, sometimes it's your role in the organization, clergy versus lay, for example. There's a power differential. and you talk about things, because, for example, at All Saints Church, people of color wanted to talk without white people around. None of the white employees liked it, but the employees who were people of color loved it, absolutely loved it. They could finally say how they really felt about how this place was so white. So that's what we mean about maintaining respect for the differences and an appreciation of the differences, right? It doesn't mean we all try to become like other people. We all try to get assimilated into something. It means that we learn how to negotiate the differences and appreciate them.
We're putting together, there are a lot of us that were Baptists that came to tradition. And when you come through the doors at Palm Desert, you're going through all the Baptists because we're all the greeters. I mean, a lot of us are. Because we know how to do it. We were raised that way. Right. So that's putting the people to work in your congregation.
That's great. Find the Baptists in your congregation. Absolutely. Sure, I love it.
Actually, one of them said, can you get all the Baptists together?
There's something to be said.
Actually, we can teach the Episcopalians how to actually do these things, that it's okay to reach out and touch somebody and say hello. And think on your own.
Yeah, I love it. Marshall.
To further what you were just saying about the inclusion, you know, I've had some thoughts, and I'm probably guilty of this myself. I'm a traditionalist. I love the history of the Episcopal Church. I love the pomp and ceremony of the Episcopal Church. We do it well. The question of identity, and I'm struggling with. There was a comment or a statement that's been made that's so eloquent, but it's the notion of being inclusive, but not expecting the other group or person to lose their heritage, to erase their heritage in order to become like us. And so it's a struggling act, because I hear, you know, I want the Episcopal Church to be more inclusive, but I don't want it to lose its rich history. And so how that juggling act, that balancing act of how to, the music in our place is divine in my thinking.
Right.
But for someone who's interested in a jazz or drumming, not.
Maybe come to Big Sam. We've got African drums at our
Right,
church.
right.
They rock.
So the question is that balance, finding that balance.
Yeah, no, right, that's right. Are you raising your hand or just stretching your hand? Okay. Yes.
One thing that we've been experiencing in PB, and I reflect on this as I think about what you're saying, is we have a traditional Episcopalian appreciation, and how do we change? And several years ago, we started to think of our campus as a pilgrim house. And we stopped thinking about, Lord, no matter what we do, it's always like, can we bring more people into Sunday morning attendance? And now it's more, how can we open up our facilities and our campus to help the community enhance their spirituality, whether it's yoga in the sanctuary or Tai Chi or things like that may not connect completely with a worship service, but it offers the opportunity for a long-term thing for the community to kind of meld and find interfaces where we can then begin to take the next steps.
Yeah. Next. All right. Anything else?
I think we should give you a big round of applause.